Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today we're going to discuss important issues that are prevalent in the Middle East and of course concern Pakistan directly, indirectly as well, and other important stories that form part of this Friday show. Our first segment today will be on the escalating Middle East tensions and of course Palestine, day 196 of this conflict between Israel and Palestine. We'll begin with the news on the veto, of course, that the Palestine had asked for it to be considered as a full state as per the and a member of the United Nations, and that has been vetoed by the United States. So that puts things in the open as far as Palestine's future in the UN is concerned. Secondly, as per reports, Iran has fired air defense batteries to shoot down drones over Isfahan. And according to media, as regional tensions are rising following Iran's retaliatory strike on Israel after an attack against its diplomatic premises in Syria. Also, US officials have also been quoted in media reports talking about an Israeli missile that has reportedly struck Iran. And of course, these explosions in the central province of Isfahan have also been reported in various sections of the media, but not have been confirmed. Israel has not officially commented, nor has Iran. Nevertheless, the media reports are there. This and of course the continued escalation of violence on Palestine by Israel also continues. The number of protests across the world also continues, and these protests are surprisingly increasing in the United States of America, where in the Columbia University more than 100 students have also been arrested by police who were protesting for Palestine and of course an end to the atrocities. This and more shows a clear stance, a pro-Israel and pro-Israel and anti-Palestine stance that has been going on in many of the Western media and in many of the Western countries as well. Will somehow, by some means whatsoever, this tension, whether it be between Israel and Iran, whether it be the war in Palestine, be stopped before it escalates to a certain extent where there will be no turning back? This will be discussed in our first segment. Our second story concerns elections that are happening in India starting from today. More than 1.4 billion people are going to take part in these elections, but of course the number as far as the voters are concerned is close to 1 million. The voting is not going to be held just on a one-day basis, but on a period of around 6 weeks, and the results will finally be announced around the 4th of June. Narendra Modi tweets the 2024 Lok Sabha elections commence today as 102 seats across 21 states and UTs go to the polls. I urge all those voting in these seats to exercise their franchise in record numbers. The fact is also that the Narendra Modi government has also been exercising different maneuvers in order to curtail the popularity of the opposition in these very elections, whether it be through putting them in jail or through suspending their accounts so that they cannot financially support their election campaigns. That and more has been part of the whole BJP maneuvering process. How is it called going to board at the end of the day? Although a lot of polls in India are suggesting that Narendra Modi is going to gain his third stint in power. Nevertheless, we'll be highlighting different aspects of the electioneering process in India. Then we are going to talk about China, where nearly half of China's major cities are sinking. Now, this has been said in a recent report that has come out, and this talks about moderate to severe levels of subsidence, putting millions of people at risk of flooding, especially at sea levels rise. And of course, we all know that with the climate change, with the different effects that are happening across the world, the sea levels are also rising. And this is what this report talks about. This report talks about the potential issues that could come in various cities in China. This report was published by the journal Science. It found 45% of China's urban land was sinking faster than 3 millimeters per year, with 16% of more than 10 millimeters per year. This will be our story. Then finally, we'll be talking about a British daughter and father duo who have found fossils of the largest known marine reptile on Earth. Now, a fossil jawbone that was found by a British girl and her father on a beach in Somerset, England, belongs to a gigantic marine reptile dating to 202 million years ago. And of course, it appears to be among the largest animals ever living on Earth. Very interesting, and very interesting also the way they found this jawbone. This is going to be our final story tonight. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the escalating tensions in the Middle East as well as day 196 of the Palestine-Israel war. We've been joined by Jauhar Saleem, who's a former foreign secretary and also heads the IRS, the think tank right now as we speak. We've been joined by him in the studios. Jauhar Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us.
Pleasure.
Now, as per media reports, explosions echoed over an Iranian city on Friday, which sources describe as an Israeli attack. Tehran plays down the incident. There's no official confirmation by it, nor has Israel confirmed anything of the sort. Nevertheless, the United States has told the group of 7 foreign ministers, as per media reports, that it received last-minute information from Israel about an attack on Iran. The Italian foreign minister, Antonio Tajani, said the US told the G7 ministers that it had been informed at the last minute. Then an Iranian official tells Reuters that there are no plans to respond against Israel for any incident that is reported in the media. Iranian president, if we remember well, had warned Israel before Fridays that Tehran would deliver a severe response to any attack on its territory. What does this entail in your point of view? Does it mean there's going to be a thaw in this recent escalation of tensions between Israel and Iran?
Yes, I think as it was expected, and I think I'd projected in my previous comments on this particular issue, when the Iranians, they retaliated with over 300 projectiles, although that was a huge number with 170 drones and a lot of ballistic missiles and other missiles. But it was done in a way that there was not much possibility of actual casualties. The target was such. And also the time which elapsed in terms of, because there were 5 hours which the drones took to reach Israel. So it was all in a way designed to ensure minimum casualties, but at the same time the optics were grand. In the same way, when the Israelis planned their retaliation, in the war cabinet meeting that happened after the Iranian attack, there was went on for 2 days. There was very, very strong views. On the one hand, the opposition leaders like Benny Gantz and others, which were kind of more hardliners, they were emphasizing the need for a swift action and a strong action. But Netanyahu was the one who was sort of trying to moderate those views. The Americans had been all along impressing upon Israel and pushing for, okay, they knew there would be some sort of a retaliation, but a type of retaliation that would not elicit a response from the Iranians. And that is exactly what has happened. The retaliation, Israelis, the Americans claim on behalf of Israelis, because Israelis normally never comment on such attacks. That's a tradition. Americans claim that a missile was fired. On the other hand, Iranian officials have shared with the media that it was 3 drones. So that there's there's
media reports of quadcopters as well. And
quadcopters, they are drones. So basically, but the fact is, either way, and then there was some claims, again unofficially, not officially by Israel, that one of the installations has been majorly damaged. On the other hand, the Iranian claims are that those drones were destroyed, basically in the air, and there's explosions that people heard, that were heard generally over Isfahan. They were basically explosions, of shooting down those drones. And now the Iranians have said that they would not respond to this. Their sources have said that as well. And this is, as you've very well pointed out, that this in a way contravenes the statement of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi before that we will come up with a very strong. But that statement was more of a deterrent, that, okay, look, if you come up with some strong retaliation. Because what was the fear? The fear of the markets, the fear everywhere, of the stakeholders, particularly the Americans and others, was that what if the Israelis take this opportunity to strike the Iranian nuclear sites in a substantial way? The Israelis have wanted that for a long, long time. And there were instances where they came very close to that, but the Americans prevailed upon them not to do so. And this could have been a chance, and probably the ultra sort of, the rightists in Israel wanted that type of retaliation.
Like Ben Gvir, for example.
Exactly, Ben Gvir, exactly, who was called this attack, this retaliation very feeble, and weak. So at the end of the day, that didn't happen. And I think a crisis has been avoided, has been averted. But that doesn't mean that, because the new crisis can't emerge. Because as long as the situation on Gaza does not change, there's always a possibility of sort of, something going wrong. But for the time being, the intense diplomacy that has taken place behind the scenes, I think that has succeeded in actually, despite whatever the optics are, in actually de-escalating the situation.
All right, speaking of Isfahan, I'd like to just know, although all the media reports have not been confirmed, there's no official statement from either side, I'd like to understand what happened in 2021 and 2023. In April 2021, Iran accused Israel of sabotaging Iran. There was an explosion in an underground area that damaged a large number of centrifuges. Israeli media had reported at that time that it was an operation by the Mossad intelligence agencies. There have also been a number of important military strikes in Isfahan, including Shahid Babai air base and facilities for the development and production of missiles. In January last year, Iran also blamed Israel for an attack on what it called a workshop complex in the center of Isfahan city, which involved, it said, 3 drones and caused minor damage. Why is Isfahan is an Israeli target all these years?
Well, because of the sites which are related to their sort of, the nuclear program. But it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because over the years, Israelis have tried, like there have been, wherever they feel that there's, in their view, there's a need for sort of, because, they do not want to, Iran to acquire the military nuclear capability. They already have the civilian nuclear capability, but, and there's a very fine line between the two. And wherever they feel that, they need to intervene, and they do, although, they had long planned and wished for a major strike which would really take out those nuclear installations in a big way and set the program back by 5 or 10 years or even more. That has not happened. But what has happened in these type of attempts, and also you would recall some years ago there was a cyber attack which was very effective as well, because these days everything is based on computers and everything. And that attack paralyzed the sort of, in fact, in some ways it wreaked more damage than the physical attacks. So that has been a long-standing Israeli policy. But I think the important thing is that at this critical juncture, that temptation for which many in Israel were actually pushing for, to attack to the nuclear sites in a big way and inflicting a major damage, which would have then resulted in a major retaliation from Iran. And it's very interesting. Look at the markets, what has happened. First, the markets, the oil prices went up, like 3%. The stock prices went down 3%. But after this strike happened, after the markets realized that the strike was not as big as it could have been, and was like minor, and the Iranians are not going to retaliate to that, actually the oil prices went back. They actually lost the gains. So and the markets are very effective in engaging all these. So it clearly indicates that the markets are seeing it as a de-escalation.
All right. Now, speaking of de-escalation, before we go to further discuss the de-escalation, I'd like to understand why did the US veto the Palestinian request to become a proper member of the United Nations, because it was the only country that did that. How is this decision going to bode for Palestine and the relationship that it has with the United Nations?
Yeah, it was in 2012, in the sort of aftermath, or the Oslo Accords happened in 93 and 95, but many years after that, the United Nations granted observer status to Palestine. And following that, many countries started recognizing the state of Palestine. In fact, so far, about 140 countries, more or less, have recognized the state of Palestine. Recently, there were some European countries like Slovenia, Ireland, and there were a group of 4 countries which publicly stated that they intend to recognize the state of Palestine as well. And hence this resolution, this was an endeavor, because this, the format of the UN is, if the UNSC approves it, after that it goes to the General Assembly, where 2/3 majority has to approve it, and then you get the UN membership. And that 2/3 of majority within the GA is not a problem, because already 140 countries out of 193 UN members have already recognized it. It is only the UNSC. Now, in the UNSC, what has happened is that, these, there are 15 countries and 5 are the permanent powers, and then the 10 non-permanent. The non-permanent members of the UN right now are mostly smaller countries like Malta, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, Guyana, these are very small countries. And then there's South Korea, Japan, and, so on and so forth. So all these countries, they voted for the resolution. The only abstentions were Switzerland
and the UK.
And the Americans. Okay, but if they had just abstained and the Americans had abstained, then the resolution would have passed. So Americans had to use
the previous resolution that Israel criticized the US for.
Exactly. So Americans had to veto it, but this is the long-standing American policy. And they had stated it recently as well, that if there was any attempt, in fact, they had tried to dissuade other countries from launching such an endeavor. But when it did happen, they had stated that they would veto it, and they did veto it. Because that is a stated policy that the US has. Because they have said, and after this vote as well, it's very interesting, 2 statements after that. One was the US statement, which said that we believe that this would not in the best interest of the Palestinians as well, and this has to happen through bilateral negotiations.
It has said that before as well, that Palestine becoming a member of the United Nations is not going to help it for the 2-state solution.
Exactly. On the other hand, the Israeli ambassador there, they said that if this resolution would have passed, then the Security Council would have become the Terror Council. So he had used a very strong statement on this.
It even calls Palestine a terrorist country.
That is sort of like the type of strong language.
Exactly. That is the language that we are used to coming from Israel. Now, the key word across the world after these media reports on Friday is de-escalation, whether it be Joseph Borrell, whether it be China, Egypt, Turkey, Germany. They have, or even Pakistan has taken out a statement, our foreign office has taken out a statement calling for de-escalation. How important is de-escalation? Will de-escalation happen? This is a lot of question that is on the minds of so many, and I'm sure on your mind as well. All these statements, will they work for the benefit of de-escalation, or do these remain mere statements?
Well, first of all, these statements are the positions of all these countries, which means that it's not just that they make statements; they also conduct diplomacy, and some of these countries are important. In China, Russia, some of the European countries, like the major ones, Germany, France, UK. Then again, within the Muslim world, within the Middle Eastern countries, Egypt, Jordan, then Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. These are all, and they all have their some diplomatic influence, and so their word is not just first of all words. Secondly, intense diplomacy behind the scenes is going on for for avoiding escalation, and there have been many, because this crisis has now lasted this unfortunately this very tragic and this brutal military action has lasted 6 months now. And when you have this type of an action, there are many situations whereby it could sort of spill over. There could be a spillover and become a more wide-ranging crisis. On top of that, the Israeli action, where they bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus, there was a clear
It was a violation of the Geneva Convention.
Vienna Convention, and many other international laws as well. So the point is that, and that then resulted in this sort of, chain of events, which everybody was concerned about. Why? Because first of all, it meant that within the region, this whole crisis, which has already become such a humanitarian crisis and such an alarming situation, which is arousing emotions all over the world, as you mentioned, in America and everywhere. There were hundreds of thousands of people gathered in European capitals and all over the world. In different
that has been happening since the 7th of October, since this whole conflict escalated.
Exactly. So the emotions are getting worked up. So in this situation, the responsible countries, behind the scenes, they're endeavoring. Like, for example, the Americans were endeavoring from the very beginning that Iran should not get involved. Then, and because of that, Hezbollah which is supported by Iran, did not get involved as much. And other groups which the Westerns call Iranian proxies in the region, they did not get involved to support Hamas, because otherwise it would have widened the conflict. Subsequently, you see, recently they were putting a lot of pressure on Israel, first for a humanitarian pause, which did not happen, then for resumption of aid, which happened to some degree, and some degree it didn't happen. Then thirdly, for for alternative course for a ground assault of Rafah, because that would have created a huge.
But that is a danger that is still present as to when and how Israel is going to have its ground offensive on Rafah, because nobody in Israel or the Israeli War Command has negated the fact that they are not going to go for it.
Yeah, that's true. But the negotiations between America and Israelis are still ongoing to find a way. Okay, if the Israelis don't agree on that, at least to find a way how they can sort of in some ways contain the civilian casualties. Then the fourth track was between Hamas and Israel indirectly, through the Americans and Qataris and the Egyptians and others, whereby they were trying for a temporary ceasefire at least and release of the hostages. So all these tracks, I think these tracks, okay, they have not been successful in their entirety or to a great degree, but at least they have been, to some degree they have worked. One, in ensuring that the crisis did not get widened. Second, okay, people say, and it's true, already, the death loss, if you include the maimed ones, is over 100,000. But it could have been even more, perhaps if there was not this immense pressure. Thirdly, this new crisis which emerged after the sort of, the Israeli strike on an Iranian embassy, this was a conflagration and in a very, it created a very fragile situation, pregnant with a lot of dangers, for the region, not only for the region, world oil markets as well, world, those trade routes as well,
exactly,
for the world economy.
It could have had global consequences had it been, if this crisis still escalates.
Exactly. And for the time being, what we see is that it is on the path of this de-escalation.
Okay, last question, and I'd like to understand about the sanctions. Anthony Blinken says the G7 is committed to holding Iran to account, because of course the G7 summit is going on, noting the US government announced more sanctions on Tehran yesterday. The G7 will adopt more sanctions the days ahead. This is what he has said. Then of course there are so many other countries like Israel, 46 other countries have issued a joint statement on sanctions. EU leaders have also decided to impose sanctions. What kind of sanctions are we looking at on Iran, and how is this going to impact Iran?
Now this is very interesting because you see, Netanyahu, and as per some media reports, in the war cabinet meeting, which there was a lot very heated discussion, there he was emphasizing that we should use this opportunity to sort of to have some sort of a limited retaliation, but more importantly have additional sanctions on Iran. And the Americans were supporting that. Americans also publicly stated that this is, we are going to have more sanctions, additional sanctions on Iran, and the Europeans seconded that, the major European countries. Now, in terms of what sanctions, they're talking in two areas, and basically these are sanctions related to, first of all, their missile program, and secondly, their drone program.
All right.
Now these are capabilities that Iranians have acquired. They say indigenously entirely, but these are significant capabilities that Iran has acquired. By the way, these drones have been used also in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Russians have been buying from Iran, and that is also why the West would want to see this program curtailed. And secondly, missiles. Iran doesn't really have a air force in terms of fighter aircraft, a significant air force in terms of fighter aircraft and sort of the general assets of an air force. But what they have is a very strong missile program. And as they have demonstrated, okay, they might not have caused casualties, and probably the intent was not there as well. But at least they have demonstrated the capacity to throw literally hundreds of projectiles on Israel, and I mean, they all reached Israel. Of course, many were destroyed on the way, but those and many on the Israeli sort of airspace. But the point is that the capacity, the capability was there, demonstrated.
And so that is what they want to basically curtail through these sanctions one way or the other. But I just hope the sanctions don't extend to such a limit that it further hinders Iran, because it is already under so many sanctions that normal life is not continuing in the country. Thank you so very much, Jauhar Saleem Saab, to have joined us, former Foreign Secretary and as well heading the IRS, to have talked to us about this conflict that hasn't shown any signs of abating. But let's see what the future days have in hold, because the next few days are extremely important as far as the de-escalation process is concerned. Thank you, sir, to have joined us. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns the elections in India. Now, around 969 million people are eligible to vote in the biggest election in human history. Polling is going to take place in 7 phases over the next 6 weeks in the world's most populous country. This nationwide vote is considered amongst the most consequential in decades, as Narendra Modi's powerful right-wing BJP aims for an outright majority and a mandate to widen its development and the Hindu nationalist policies that have been established during its 10-year rule. A lot of questions also emanate on the way the opposition has been tackled by Narendra Modi and the BJP, with different allegations, incarcerations of the opposition leaders, as well as the way their finances have been suspended, and they were not able to participate in the electioneering process properly, and even continue with normal practices as well. The continued opposition, that is India, has leveled many allegations like match fixing, like so many others on of course Narendra Modi and the BJP. But is that whole allegation or the whole maneuvering that the Modi government has done pre-election going to move in the favor of BJP or against it? To discuss different aspects of it, we've been joined by two guests. One is in the studios, and she is Maheen Shafeeq, regional affairs expert. Thank you very much, Maheen, to have joined us. And online, we've been joined by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja. She's the Executive Director of the CISS in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Dr. Saiba, pleasure to have you on board as well. I'll begin with you, Dr. Saiba. The BJP manifesto praises the government's track record from the past decade, highlights the benefits of its welfare schemes. But there are a lot of key issues in the elections to the 543 seats in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of parliament, that will be held in 7 phases between the 19th of April and the June the 1st, with the votes being counted on the 4th of June. What are the major issues as far as this whole electioneering process is concerned? There are so many effects, whether the effect of on economy, whether on the effects of the way the BJP government has targeted the minorities, targeted the opposition. So many questions are on the voters' minds. How is that different pre-electioneering maneuvering by the BJP government going to affect the voting process?
Definitely. Yesterday I was reading an article that the propaganda industry by Modi. So this is what is the stronghold of BJP under Modi, that they are very good with the propaganda, and actually they have created certain images which have become the popular narrative, and unfortunately Indian vote bank and public is unable to see beyond those bubble of disinformation. For example, you have seen that when we see the BJP's election slogan, that slogan is based on that 400 seats for BJP. It means that BJP is not even thinking that they are the equal competitor against India, the alliance of opposition parties in elections.
They have an absolute majority on mind in these elections, the 400 seats that you talk about.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that shows one, overconfidence, two, confidence of Modi on their own propaganda mills and pre and post election engineering, the rigging, what we call. And then when you see that how since 2014, how the mindset of Indian public has been completely transformed. For example, this is the first time when a popular electoral party, they are competing their elections or building their electoral campaign on the notion of religion, on the notion of Hindutva, on the notion of India as an emerging Hindu Rashtra. So this is a big question mark on the Federation of India. Another very important point I would like to highlight, which is against or contrary to the popular narratives in India. What Rahul Gandhi said. Rahul Gandhi stated in an interview that 35 this whole 70 crore people own the wealth which is being owned by 22 families in India. It means that the uneven distribution of wealth has been acuted, is acute in India. And under Modi, the richest 22 families, they owned all the as much as amount of wealth which is being owned by rest of the 70 crore Indians. He also said that the largest extortion scam was conducted by BJP under the electoral bond scam or pre-election engineering. Then there is highest number of unemployment in India in during last 45 years. It was not unemployment was not that high, which is today in India.
Of course. Of course, Dr. Sahaba, kindly stay on with us. We've also got another guest in the studios who's wishing impatiently for her turn. Maheen, let's talk a little bit about the manifestos. The BJP manifesto praises the government's track record from the past decade, highlights the benefits of its welfare schemes. The party bats for its government to be voted back into power in the name of stability, says it will turn India into a developed nation by the year 2047. Congress highlights unemployment and inflation. The country promises to deliver justice to oppressed communities and full statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. The Trinamool Congress, which covers West Bengal, also says the bloc will repeal a controversial citizenship law which critics call anti-Muslim if it comes to power. Communist Party of India, the Marxist party, which is also part of the opposition coalition, promises to repeal the draconian anti-terror laws such as the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Now that, I mean, these are just some of the, there are so many political parties aiming for a place in these elections. What is the most interesting or progressive design as far as the manifestos of these parties are concerned? And what really caught your eye when you were reading through them?
Thank you for having me on the show. The elections that are going on in India are very interesting, very unique, something that the world has not witnessed so far, given how long the period is and everybody is talking about it. The manifestos present an interesting image of how India views itself, rather how it should be portrayed. So the manifestos talk about the employment and role of women, the role of space, role of technology, making India a manufacturing hub. All of these huge pledges are made within the manifestos. The BJP manifesto titled Modi Ki Guarantee, like the guarantees of Modi, and then the other title of the Congress's title is the Justice Document. That kind of tells what is within the document. So Modi gives tall orders of what he's going to do with the employment, farmers, related to women, related to technology, and on the other hand, Congress says they will undo all the wrongdoings of the BJP till far, all the aspects that you just mentioned. It is interesting, it sort of shows a tussle between the two parties and what one party is discussing about, the other party is trying to negate that. So there's a wide gap within what they're offering, and this kind of gives options to the Indian voters of what they're going to choose.
But the Indian voters, majority of it is Hindu. And of course, this is what the BJP has been catering to since day one. And now that it is, rooting for a third stint in power, do you feel that the Hindu majority in India is convinced that the India, in their point of view, can only move forward under the leadership of Narendra Modi?
This is a very critical aspect of when analyzing the Indian elections. Last year in 2019, there was a major incident of the attack on Pakistan, attack in Kashmir. And that was the turning point of the elections. This time, the opening of Ram Mandir was one of the major incidents that drew all the Hindu population. So for them, this is something significant. And this portrays that Modi is the person, he has guaranteed all the Hindus of the country that he will make this a Hindu state. So this is what they're trying to do, and Hindus are very confident. And if you see majority of the Hindu majority states, they are the ones mostly voting for BJP. Whereas if you see the other states where there's Muslim and other minorities residing, such as the Nagaland, there is a massive split between different parties, or there's a conflict. So only the central and the eastern India is sure that, mostly the Hindu belt, is sure that BJP is going to win. But south and in Jammu and Kashmir, we see a quite different picture.
All right, Dr. Asma, let's talk about the scandals that have rocked this whole electioneering campaign, whether it be the use of electronic voting machines that have also cast a doubt on whether these elections are going to be free and fair, because as per the opposition, Congress and other parties, they can easily be manipulated. Then there's this whole scam of the 1,300 crore rupees or even more, 13,000 crore rupees that have been amassed by the BJP. And the Congress and other opposition parties haven't gotten their fair share of it. Add to it the incarcerations of the opposition leaders like Arvind Kejriwal, like so many others. Add to that the pressure that is being put on journalists, on media houses, on the NGOs, on the civil society members who are trying to highlight the wrongdoings of the current government, because for the moment the elections are on and the government is still in power. Under this whole scenario, don't you feel that this electioneering process there's a huge doubt or a huge blot that has been put on this electioneering process as per the eyes of the world, as per the eyes of international media, as per the eyes of human rights organizations, as per the eyes of judicial organizations?
Definitely, Umar. When you these days, I'm reading articles on Indian elections and on BJP in international media, and the biggest trend is that almost all of the scholars or professors writing for international media, they are criticizing the downgrade of Indian democracy, and most of them, I would say like 95% of them, they have no hopes that anything good would come out of these elections in India, because it is being accepted, like it is being registered, I would say, by international conscience, that these elections are not going to be free and fair, because the pre-election rigging was so obvious and so subtle that no one can deny that how
I wouldn't call it subtle, Dr. Asma. I wouldn't call it subtle because Rahul Gandhi openly called it match fixing.
Yeah, exactly. So that is why it was so visible that everyone. But you see, for this Rahul Gandhi and the opposition alliance India, they were unable to launch a credible, intense, convincing election campaign against BJP. And here it is really important to highlight that when we say BJP, no, these elections are only fought in the name of Modi. If BJP wins these elections, they are on Modi is the only leader or only face BJP uses to convince their voters. If you see, like in democratic parties, there is a whole chain of leadership available, but here you would only see Modi as the godfather of India, Modi as the change maker in India, which has the potential to convert it into Hindu Rashtra. So the pre-election rigging and all those we talked about those all scams several times, but the way the accounts of opposition parties were freeze, opposition leaders were put in jail, there were ethnic violence in those provinces like Manipur, where BJP is not in a strong position, and through ethnic cleansing, maybe that they tried to divert the attention of people from electoral process to the survival instinct, so that they cannot pay much focus. But the most alarming thing for me as the student of South Asian politics would be the results or the possibility if BJP, through all those illegal means, somehow manage to win in IIOJK, because they use force, aggression, and violence to forcefully bring Kashmiri people to the election booths and ask them to pay to cast their vote. And one Kashmiri leader was telling me that they in the evening, the Indian armed forces, occupying forces, they come to the houses and they check the fingers if there is the black line there or not, and they said that if there would be not that black line of as an evidence of casting vote. They would cut that finger and they would destroy that house. So this is how they are pushing. They are forcefully bringing they're planning to bring forcefully Kashmiris to the election booth. So when Kashmiri is not free to decide that if he wants to cast his vote or not, how you can even imagine that he would be free, that which which party they want to cast.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. Thank you so very much, Dr. Asma, Shakir, Khawaja Sahaba, to have joined us. We're a bit short of time. So thank you very much. We'll see you inshallah very soon. Coming back to you, Maheen, so many things that we read about tax terrorism, as the Congress puts it. Then the international media that talks about the inflation, the economic issues, the unemployment, the way the minorities are being treated, the way the opposition has been treated. Under all of these circumstances, and of course the tactics that the BJP is using, what is your prediction of the future of this electioneering process? Because we have a lot of weeks before it all ends on the 4th of June, when the ballots will finally be counted. Do you feel that the international media will still sway by Modi if he comes into power, despite knowing and highlighting the way he has maneuvered towards it?
This time, the voting is very interesting within India. So, if you follow what's happening since morning, last time everybody was saying it's Modi. So Modi is winning, but this time there isn't a lot of confidence in Modi.
Okay.
Last time it was short that Modi is winning. This time there's a lot of debate about the fall of democracy, the violence that's erupted, all the allegations, and all the ways the opposition has been strangled and they have not been allowed to conduct their campaigns. So while a lot of people are supporting BJP, there are other major groups that are actually talking about and arguing and debating that what are the other options that they do have. And for that, they are choosing the Congress or the India Alliance, or some are even thinking of not voting because they don't see BJP or Modi or the face of Modi.
But Maheen, that doesn't change the mindset of the majority of the Hindu community that sides with the BJP, does it?
Yes, it does not change whatever they are thinking and whatever, because for them Modi is, like Dr. Asma mentioned, is the godfather for all of their needs. And as they are trying to convert India into a Hindu state,
Hindustan or whatever, the way they are saying.
A Bharat.
Yes, exactly, Bharat. No longer the pluralistic, no longer the democratic country or the mother of democracy, as Narendra Modi himself points out India to be. Unfortunate as it might be, but this is how things are swaying towards. Thank you so very much, Maheen, Shafeeq, to have joined us, regional affairs expert, and to have talked to us about not only the manifestos but the way this election is moving forward. Thank you very much to have joined us. Last two stories. The first concerns China and how, as per a report, nearly half of China's cities are sinking. The authors of the paper that was published in the Journal of Science found that 45% of China's urban land was sinking faster than 3 millimeters per year, with 16% at more than 10 millimeters per year, driven not only by declining water tables but also by sheer weight of the built environment. We all know China's urban population is already in excess of 900 million people, and of course they say that even a slight increase in population or portion of subsiding land in China could therefore translate into a substantial threat to urban life. Climate change and so many other factors that are adding to it and contributing to it, and it's high time that all the countries across the world sit together and form a strategy in order to curtail the effects that we are seeing rampant in different countries across the world. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, a fossil jawbone that was found by a British girl and her father on a beach in Somerset in England has been finally confirmed to be belonging to a gigantic marine reptile that dates back to 200 million years and appears to be amongst the largest animals ever on Earth. What a startling discovery, and just the way that this girl found it. Now, this bone that is called a surangula was from a type of ocean-going reptile that was known as an ichthyosaur. Now, based on the dimensions compared to the same bone in closely related mammals of the same time, researchers estimated that the Triassic period creature was between 72 and 85 meter feet, sorry, not meter long, and of course it would have made it the largest known marine reptile and would rival some of the largest baleen whales that are alive today. A startling discovery, and also a lot of comparisons are being made with the girl that found this bone with another girl, Ruby Reynolds, who was 11 at the time, and other bones that were also found by another girl some time back. So the fact is that these discoveries are extremely interesting because they not only make you understand the way our world or our earth has evolved, but also how our marine life has evolved as well, but also give us an insight into what our past used to be and the past of these very mammals or these animals used to be. It's good to look at the past in order to better move forward. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah on Monday with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Of course, stay safe and have a wonderful weekend. Allah Hafiz.